Greetings to you. Welcome to this lesson, which is where we are dealing with the cell specialization. So cell specialization, like we said last time, we said this is actually where cells are structured in a specific way just to fit its function. Last time we were dealing with ciliated cells and root hair cell. Today we are going to start with xylem cell. So a xylem cell is actually found in a plant cell. And how is the xylem cell made? The xylem cell has got some parts, and those parts make it actually to adapt its or to suit its function. Well then, to begin with, what are the functions of the xylem cell? The xylem cell has got two functions. Number one, conduction of water and mineral salts. Conduction of water and mineral salt. That is transporting water from the underground to the leaves. So as water is transported and mineral salt from the underground to the leaves, it passes through the xylem. The other function is to provide a mechanical support of the plant. To provide a mechanical support of the plant, that is just a physical plant, so that a physical support, so that the plant may remain standing in an upward position. Now, when we look at adaptation, what is adaptation? Adaptation is simply the way something sits or is made to suit its function. So how is the xylem cell actually adapted to its function? So the end walls of neighboring cells broken to form continuous tubes. The second one is protoplasm is absent, leaving a hollow space in the middle of the cell. Protoplasm is absent, leaving a hollow space in the middle of the cell. The third one, walls are linefied, that is filled with line, to provide mechanical support. So there, as you can see, is the xylem cell. Then we proceed to the next one, which is muscle cell. The muscle cell is found in animals. So muscle cell is what helps animals to move about. Let's look at the functions of the muscle cells. To contract as they produce movements. You can say contract and relax. That is just a function of the muscles. So the muscle cell is there. As you can see, that is a muscle cell. All right. We'll look at adaptation. Adaptation of the muscle cells. How is it suited to its function? So it has abundance of mitochondria. Remember, mitochondria is a site of respiration to produce energy. Since muscles are responsible in controlling movements, there is need of more energy. So abundance of mitochondria is there to help in release of energy for contraction. The second function is the presence of actin and myosin filaments in the cytoplasm, which carry out contraction. The muscle cell, which is this one here, is very important in our body for our movements. So, as seen from the diagram, the shapes of the different types of muscles are different from each other. So muscles are different from each other. Let's get to the red blood cells. The red blood cells are called erythrocyte. Erythrocyte. That is the spelling. What is their function? The red blood cells or erythrocyte are responsible in the transportation of oxygen and small amounts of carbon dioxide. That is their function. How are they adapted to their function? Or how are they suited to their function? Well, their shape is biconcave, or they have a biconcave disc shape to increase the surface area for diffusion of oxygen. Presence of a red pigment called hemoglobin. Yes, hemoglobin, which has a high affinity attraction for oxygen. So that word affinity means attraction. I will repeat that one. The presence of red pigment called hemoglobin, which has a high affinity. I said affinity means attraction for oxygen. Hemoglobin combines with oxygen to form hemoglobin, oxhemoglobin. When oxygen concentration are high, e.g. in the lungs, when oxygen concentration are low, e.g. in the muscles, oxhemoglobin dissociates from hemoglobin and oxygen. The equation is given there for hemoglobin plus oxygen in lungs, which will produce oxhemoglobin. The next one, adaptation number 3, absence of nucleus makes more room for hemoglobin. We don't have the nucleus in the erythrocyte or the red blood cells. All right, that is the symbol of the red blood cells, or the shape of the red blood cells, as you can see it here. We move on to another cell, which is the nerve cells. Nerve cells. Those are also called the neurons. The neurons. What are their functions? When we are dealing with the nervous system, we are going to look at this topic in full details. I think we'll look at it nicely. And we'll also see what all those cells do and how they operate. So their function is to conduct electrical impulse from one part of the body to another. Now, the electrical impulse is also called nerve impulse. To conduct, meaning to allow it to move through it, to pass through it, to the electrical impulse. How is it adapted? Well, as you may observe the shape, the presence of dendrites. These dendrites that you see there, that collect impulses from neighboring cells. Their function is just to collect impulses from the neighboring cells. That is their function, to conduct electrical impulse or nerve impulse. Presence of axon. Where the axons are, what are their functions? To carry impulses from one end of the neuron to another, from one end of the neuron to another. Okay, the third one, presence of synoptic. I don't know how if you pronounce it synoptic or synoptic knob. I like to pronounce it synoptic knob. that forms a link with other neurons. So where other neurons meet, that is the synaptic knob, as you can see where it is. The other one, presence of nodes, that is number 4. Presence of nodes of Renvier that make impulses move faster. Note the part of the neuron that is having the nucleus and cytoplasm is called the cell body. There is the cell body, as you can see. Well, there are cells, the nerve cells. There are 3. We have the motor neuron, sensory neuron, and relay neuron. There are actually 3, as you can see. So we have also the white blood cells. White blood cells. These are cells that defend the body against infections or diseases. 2 examples of white blood cells are phagocytes and lymphocytes. And these are the ones that we want to look at under the white blood cells. Let's look at their function. Those are the phagocytes to start with. There is the phagocyte. What is their function? These defend the body against infections by engulfing and digesting germs. So when the germs come in the body, their function is to invert, to engulf, and not only engulfing them, but digesting them. In other words, their function is to kill germs in the body. How are they adapted to their function? Lobed nucleus, which makes engulfing of germs easy. So the nucleus is lobed, as you can see there. Why? To make it easy for them to engulf germs. Amoeboid movement, which makes it possible for them to move towards germs, so they can move. The third function, they have no fixed shape, but can change their shapes, making it engulfing of foreign bodies possible. Lymphocyte. Lymphocyte or lymphocyte is another example of the white blood cells. By the way, we said the red blood cells are called erythrocytes. What about the white blood cells? They are called leukocytes. Leukocytes. Lymphocyte or lymphocytes. What is their function? They also defend the body. But how do they defend the body? They defend the body against infections by producing antibodies and antitoxins. Antibodies are proteins that destroy germs. These are just proteins that destroy germs. They become like poison to the germs in the body. As a result, the germs would die. Or foreign bodies, while antioxins, ant means against or fight, and corruption, fighting against corruption. Antioxin, meaning they fight against auxins, are proteins that neutralize poison from the germs. So after germs are destroyed, they have got poison. Some germs have got poison. And what helps now your body are the lymphocytes, which neutralize the poison from the germs. Let's look at the adaptation. As you can see the shape there. What is their adaptation? Presence of a large nucleus and thin cytoplasm. It has a large nucleus, as you can see, a very large nucleus, and a thin cytoplasm. Making it easy for it to carry out its functions. We go to another cell. And what is that cell? There it is. None other than guard cells. Guard cells. What are the guard cells? And what is their function? Well, these cells are found in plants, mainly in the leaves. What is their function? They are found in pairs. They are the ones that prevent the inward and outward movements of substances, such as oxygen or carbon dioxide, in and out of the plant, and also water, as a plant loses water in the process of transpiration. So they control the size of the stomata. In other words, what is the function of the guard? To control the size of the stomata. Adaptations. How do they adapt? How are they adapted to their function? They occur in pairs, and each cell has a semicircular shape when touched, and straight shape when plasmolized. We'll look at this in details shortly in the next topic. Their cell walls are thicker around the stomata than anywhere else. This makes it possible for the stomatas to open when these cells absorb water. Here are the stomatas. The next cell that we can look at is the phloem. Phloem is also found in a plant cell. In a plant. Their function is to transport and manufacture food. Is to transport manufactured food from one part of the plant to another. How are they suited to their function? How are they adapted to their function? End walls between neighboring cells are perforated to form sieve plates. That is number one. I'll repeat that one. End walls between neighboring cells are perforated to form sieve plates. Well, the second one, protoplasm. Protoplasm is that part we already learned about in the cell, the protoplasm. There it is shown. Protoplasm is partly lost, leaving behind some cytoplasmic strands. That is number two, adaptation number two. Protoplasm is partly lost, leaving behind some cytoplasmic strands. The next one, which is the third adaptation, presence of companion cells which supply phloem cells with enzymes and ATP. ATP. We'll look at this in details in the next topic. So here is a phloem cell, as you can see it here. Okay, we move to the last cell, which we are going to look in this lesson, the palisade cell. We already in the previous lesson looked at the two cells, the root hair cell and the ciliated cells. Now we're looking at the palisade cell, which is the last cell. Their function is to carry out photosynthesis Their function is to carry out photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a process by which plants produce their own food or make their own food. How are they adapted to their functions? They have got a high concentration of chloroplasts. Number two, the cells are longer vertically than horizontal. They are longer vertically than horizontally. This allows chloroplasts to migrate upwards or downwards as light intensify or light intensity changes, so that they are not damaged by excess light. Okay, there are the palisade cells. I think you can see even the concentration of the chloroplasts. Thank you very much. In the next lesson that we are going to be having, we are going to be looking at the topic cell organization. Cell organization. Have a good day or good night.